He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome, everyone. This is The Alex Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. And thanks to all of you who've been sharing the show, emailing me at aloha@alexmarlow.com. We'll be hearing from some of you towards the end of the show. I'm kind of blown away at some of the responses online, particularly on Rumble. For whatever reason, these videos are getting over 40,000 views a pop on Rumble, which is, again, far exceeding what I thought would be our first couple of benchmarks here. So thank you if you're on that platform. And if not, however you want to get the show, totally platform agnostic here, but just please subscribe. It's the best way that you don't miss one. And these are going to be coming at you every single weekday. So we'll get you updated on all the news and what I think is really the stories behind the stories. I will start with the big one. It is the Republicans have got the House now. So that's official. Still a few races outstanding. People who live in weird states like where I am in California, where it's acceptable to count votes for a week and a half after the election. Still some things trickling in, but we're going to have a narrow majority in the House. And it's interesting that at Breitbart, we immediately heard from Mike Johnson. We got an exclusive coming with him, and it's going to be a big one. I love this idea, but it's interesting because I've told you Breitbart tends to be ground zero for the conservative movement, and very skeptical, at least I am, of Speaker Johnson, his ability to lead a successful Congress. But you know what? If he's going to try his best, so long as he's in there, good for him. So we'll see it. We'll keep you posted on that. I did lose my congressional race. Mike Garcia's seat, a fighter pilot, great guy in my neck of the woods, is going to lose to a generic, meaningless Democrat. And just a reminder that Republicans have their work cut out for them right now. It is not just time to rejoice. It is time to rejoice, of course, but it goes beyond that. We need to make sure we are focused and we are fighting. And the down ballot races didn't end up going quite as well as we would have hoped. We're going to get probably 53 in the Senate. The last race that's not totally a done deal is Pennsylvania, because Mark Elias is out there interfering in the election. He's waging an insurrection. What Mark Elias is doing with his Lawfare project is he is trying to subvert a Democrat process. And this is something that is a disgrace in this country. In fact, it's fascism, as far as I know. These are my words. These are what the left thinks of it. But he's trying to overturn a democratically elected senator in David McCormick out there in Pennsylvania. So we'll see if anything happens there, but just know he's going to sue until blue. That's what they do. I got to be honest with you. I hope he keeps at it, because it allows you to remind people that it's not just the right that does election denial. The left denied the 2016 election for 4 full years. And I don't even know if they've ever accepted it, to be honest with you. So just keep that in mind, that they look to deny elections whenever they can. But we're going to wind up with 53 in the Senate, a couple seat majority in the House. We'll see where that shakes out, but Republicans will get enough. But it's going to be tight, and Trump's going to have his work cut out for him. The good news, though, is he is building a cabinet of winners so far. And we're getting a lot of names. Some of these have not been confirmed as we're taping the show. There's just a lot of smoke where I feel like it's worth talking about them. I try to bring you the most cutting edge insider information as possible, but we produce the shows slightly, so there's a little lag on them. So if anything is updated between now and airtime, then my apologies, but I want to give you the up to the minute news the way I'm seeing it. Here's what we're seeing as of late. There is a lot of rumors that Marco Rubio will be Secretary of State. Now, these is one where there's a lot of smoke, but not necessarily fire yet. But I think this is going to happen from everything I've been told, that this rumor is not just a soft launch. This is happening. It's a matter of time. I'm not totally shocked by this. Rubio is an up-and-comer. He's someone who has seemingly seen the light, very ambitious, would like, I think, even a better job than being senator, which is, of course, a terrific job, but I think he'd like a better one. And he's got the right mindset for this. I think he's got the right personality. He's got a demeanor where he's very cordial, congenial with people, but he's also sticks to his guns, and he's steadfast fighter for his values. And I think he's someone who has really embraced Trump's vision, particularly on the foreign policy front. I don't see any daylight between the two of them. He has long been extremely tough on China. Even when he was terrible on the border, he was good on China, which is our number one geopolitical foe. And recall the embarrassment that Tony Blinken put us through as Secretary of State, particularly with regards to China. One of my favorite parts of the book, Breaking Biden, which you can see an advertisement over my shoulder here if you're watching the live stream, is when Tony Blinken allowed China to give us a swirly in the toilet on our home soil in Alaska. We met with his Chinese counterparts, and they grabbed him by his ankles, dipped his head in the toilet, and flushed it. That is a swirly. It's what they did on our own soil. We called the Swirly Summit at Breitbart News. But basically, China confronted him on Black Lives Matter and America's perceived racism. And Blinken just said, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" This was the way he would deal with China, is allow them to disgrace us on our own territory. Can't wait to see that guy go. One of the worst guys in Washington, period. He came up in both of my books because he's someone who's deeply tied in with the consultant class, which increasingly is running Washington, D.C. And they've been like this for a very long time, but it's getting worse and worse. And Blinken is one of the kings of it. His job, and mark my words, he's going to return to this with West Exec, which is a company, a consultancy that he founded. Is to basically liaison between government contractors and private companies, and he would get a cut. So that's how, for example, Google, huge one of his clients. So Google gets all these government contracts, and he would be the guy that would be the broker. He'd be the deal maker, and then he would get tons of money, 8 figures in total. That was his job, and that's what he will go back to. And if you want to know why we get the deep state, if you want to know who funds them, this is how they get funded, is that they do a stint in the private sector where they cash in on the government contracts. Then they go in the public sector. They enjoy some power. They make those connections. So then when they get back in the private sector, then they're able to cut more deals and make 8 figures. That's how it works. And that's why the government is truly even bigger than you would think. It is a swamp. It's not just the government, because all these consultancies are dependent on the government for those contracts. And Blinken is one of the architects of this, one of the worst guys we got. And he was willing to allow our country to be embarrassed by our geopolitical foes as Secretary of State in order to make sure that he was in line for all these contracts that we're going to see him go try to get right now that he's going to be stepped aside. So we got to follow that. Rubio, huge counter to that, and would be a great choice. Now, a lot of people, I think, in my audience were probably hoping it'd be Rick Grenell. I love Rick Grenell. No issues with Rick Grenell. If that's how it turned out, that would be terrific. But I have no problems with Rubio in this particular role. And I think that works out great. One thing I love about Rubio, by the way, steadfast in wanting to destroy Hamas. And again, this is where I might differ with some of you in the audience as a guy who doesn't want a lot of foreign wars and a lot of American intervention. I do believe we have a special relationship connection with Israel that is worthy of their support there in the Holy Land, a topic that will come up in great length down the road. But I will tell you that I love someone who's internalized Donald Trump's foreign policy, which is essentially we are great allies to Israel, the one Jewish state on earth, and we still maintain that America first foreign policy where we're not injecting ourselves in wars all over the world, nation building, et cetera. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can walk and chew gum at the same time, whatever is your preferred analogy. Rubio embodies that. And so I'm jacked up about this. It's great. The more I talk about it, the more I'm into it. All right. Another big one, Kristi Noem, who is going to be in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. This is an interesting one. I will tell you, with Governor Noem, South Dakota, they're going to be sad to leave her. She's beloved. She's like royalty in South Dakota. We did a massive video at Breitbart News last year that everyone should get. Super high quality stuff. I'm going to say this, and I hope this doesn't get taken out of context in a negative way. This is the job for this personality type, and that is the ice queen. And she is an ice queen. She's not warm. She's not cuddly. She is not fuzzy. This is someone who's got the eye of the tiger. And to be in charge of this particular sprawling bureaucracy that was stood up by George W. Bush after 9/11 and has never really functioned properly, perfect person to come in there and do this because you're going to make a lot of enemies. The other thing here that I like is that she's more of a hardcore, I think, politically. And this was an area where I would say maybe the most disappointing area for Donald Trump in his first administration. There were disappointments there's always disappointments aside from in foreign policy. He basically hit an A+ in foreign policy the whole way through. But This is one where he started with John Kelly, who, of course, turned out to be an anti-Trump guy at Department of Homeland Security. And then Kelly's sidekick, Kirstjen Nielsen, which had a very odd, she's famous for having a very odd J in her name somewhere. And she worked for Kelly and was not someone who was ever going to be implementing the Breitbart worldview for Department of Homeland Security. And then you had Chad Wolf, who I think came around and did decent work, the best of the group, but he formerly was a guy who lobbied on behalf of companies trying to get Americans to outsource white collar work and to immigrants, foreigners, et cetera. That was his background. So, and again, that was the best of the group. So that was pretty weak stuff for us in general, not to say that Wolf couldn't rehab himself during this time. So I don't want to be overly negative, but the others, just total disasters. And it's good to get someone who the base is going to like and who people are going to be fearful of, because this is a role where we cannot have the warm and fuzzies. There needs to be a general-like character in charge of Department of Homeland Security. This is a massive government agency, and they have a lot of things under their umbrella, again, worthy of a deeper dive, but the number one job is mass deportations. That is the point. That is what we voted for. That is what we voted for in many of our cases 3 times. We want those mass deportations. I don't care if you're doing it by getting people to self-deport with E-Verify. I don't care if you're rounding people up. I don't care if you're starting with the criminals. I don't care if you're starting with the bosses. Whatever you're doing, you've got to get people to start restoring national sovereignty in this country, what it means to be an American citizen. We want those deportations, and we don't really care how we're going to get them. Again, it's smart to try to think about optics to some degree, because if it's too brutal, if you got people in paddy wagons and stuff like that, the media tends to eat you alive. But who cares about the media? More on that later, by the way. Got a big segment coming up on how much the media is suffering. But it is, if you think about Noem, who is famous for shooting her dog. John Nolte wrote this. Kristi Noem shot her dog and her political future in the head. That was a Breitbart headline. Perfect person for a thankless job. No one's going to be happy with her in this role, but maybe by being a badass, she could win some fans. So I'm all in. I'm all in. Another great call by President Trump, well suited, and my condolences to the people of South Dakota. Mike Waltz, who's going to be national security advisor, congressman, someone who deeply understands the major national security threats of our time. And I'm talking, of course, of China, number one, Russia, Iran, all those groups that are the worst people in the world. He gets it. Super excellent communicator, fearless guy, Green Beret, retired Green Beret, badass, true badass. And he was one of the people, he's got some great ideas. He was someone who brought the families that lost loved ones during Joe Biden's botched withdrawal from the Afghanistan war. He was the one who brought them and assembled them to be with Donald Trump, to meet with Donald Trump. Very famous stuff. We've done dozens of interviews with him over the years at Breitbart News, and his organizing the Gold Star families with Trump, I thought, was very memorable, and it shows you some forward-thinking approach in order to not just do the work, but to do the communication. We're in a hyper-communication age, and you need to be able to have those moments, those grand gestures to illustrate to people what really matters, what's really important. Did Joe Biden do anything for those families ever? Did Kamala Harris, did she ever do anything with those families? No. That was the worst moment of a horrific 4 years, which is not quite over yet, be over in 2.5 months. The single worst moment, and it was Mike Waltz who was up there, who's bringing them together. Another terrific pick, and another one, I can't think of anyone better off the top of my head. A lot of good people, but I can't think of anyone better. Very supportive, by the way, of Trump's plan to use the military to crush the drug cartels in Mexico. Oh, come on. I mean, does that not put a smile on your face? This is it, guys. We're doing it. We're doing the thing. It's happening. It's all happening. Ron Paul meme. Everyone get ready. Here we go. All right. Another good one. Lee Zeldin, the EPA. So Zeldin is a guy who ran this stunning race, absolutely stunning, in New York, where he got within 5 points of the governorship and didn't quite make it, but really impressed a lot of people with his message discipline. Another veteran, and someone who's not just a good communicator, but a tireless communicator, someone who's willing to get up early and do the media hits and try to get the message out, try to get the word out. Absolutely love that stuff from him, and clearly is internalized not just what MAGA is all about, but he's someone who's not bad with the establishment, which, just being realistic, given the margins in the Senate and the House and how many jobs that need to be fulfilled, that I think this is the time to get people who are, you don't have to have a total purity test on this. We want the hardcores, but you don't have to have a total purity test. I like the guys who could come in with some expertise, who can liaison with both wings of the Republican Party at this point. So the very wise choice there. EPA is just a mess. And another person where you need someone who's very tough, someone who can, I don't know, try to win a New York governorship, even though you're a Republican. That type of guy who could be a veteran. Those things are important because the EPA, you're looking at, what is it? Best case scenario, we think 4-1, 5-1, not Trump supporters in there. You got to fire a ton of people. You got to rehire them. And you've got to completely remake the EPA's image of being all about green hokum and make it all about efficiency and trying to essentially make it an infrastructure thing where you're trying to be good stewards of the environment, but in a way that allows America to continue to thrive and to build and to grow and to be an economic engine. And that's going to be a huge reset from what it is now, which is just complete whatever green expenditure, whatever climate nonsense you want to do. That's the name of the game now. And Zeldin's not going to do that. He's a good guy, I think, to clean it up. And that will be the standard I will hold for him, is that he's got to be there to clean things up and whip it into shape. That's his job. That's his only job. And that's where we're at. All right. Next thing that we've heard, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, not confirmed, but we are getting some good news here in the sense that we had heard that there was John Paulson was a potential guy who could be running could be running the Treasury for Trump. He's a longtime Trump supporter, and he is someone who may have been okay, but I think Bessent really is the guy to do it because he's got that America First economic approach in his blood. And I know this because when John Carney and I started working on the Breitbart Business Digest, he was one of the first hotshots to reach out to us and to try to get in touch and to try to make sure that he was effectively messaging toward Trump world and to Donald Trump himself about what he was trying to do and what he's all about. And he is known as a true genius, and that's a good spot, charge of the Treasury. And he believes that the Fed independence is overrated. So he's willing to push back against the Fed, which, let's face it, has had way too much control over American economy. We'll do an interview with John Carney, our economic and finance editor, and flesh all this out as time goes on. Maybe even this week, by the way. He'd be a good guy to bring in to talk about this. But he thinks it's way overrated, the Fed independence. And he has coined this term, the Trump rally, where the stock market surges due to Trump doing well. Basically, so Trump goes, so goes the stock market is one of the concepts that he's introduced. And so very rosy view of Trumponomics, MAGAnomics, whatever you want to call it. And the deeply experienced. One thing that's really interesting with him is he actually ran George Soros's hedge fund, Soros Fund Management. This is going to turn some people off who are do stage one thinking, but keep in mind with George Soros, people don't get this, that he is known not just for his left-wing activism, which is, of course, repulsive, and I hate it, but he's made a lot of money, billions of dollars, maybe tens of billions. And he's done this by being super smart about the economy, manipulating currencies, and being ruthless, knowing what needs to get done. I really started to understand this when I spent a lot of time in Europe in the run-up to Brexit. The way even conservatives talk about Soros in Europe, for example, is as a financial genius. They don't talk about him as this anti-American, anti-Israel force that he is in the United States today and the way we talk about him on the right. They really thought of him as just this is the guy who just knows money better than anyone. And Bessent was his guy, and he made a ton of money that way for both of them. So that's a level of genius that we want on our side. He is on our side, and he might not be a name that's known to all of you, but another just A-plus pick if that's the pick for Trump. So it's just really hard to find any weaknesses that are going on right now. And I think that that is just a terrific environment for us to find ourselves in so far into the first few. I mean, what are we? We're a week today since the election, and we're talking about people who are either with the Trump agenda, have always been with the Trump agenda, or have had a full-on conversion. I'm still keeping an eye on that Senate race. Rick Scott has vowed that he wants to keep Donald Trump's agenda implemented. I think this is the obvious right pick if you are inclined to call your senators and tell them that they should not be supporting Thune, who's McConnell's guy, or Cornyn, who I think might be a slight improvement over Thune, but is generally sloppy. Scott's the guy of the people who are available, and hopefully we'll have some good news for you tomorrow. But the secret ballot tomorrow is going to happen. And we're seeing some real pushback. We got exclusive at Breitbart News from this on our Breitbart News Daily Show in Sirius XM, where Ron Johnson came on and he's supporting Scott. And he said, McConnell is running a one-man dictatorship there. And so why would you want to hand it off to Thune, his chosen guy? You wouldn't want to do that. And Cornyn, again, as I noted on yesterday's show, there's a benefit in that he could get primaried in 2026. So again, improvement over Thune, but these are not the guys that we want we would not want to slow down Trump's agenda. We want someone who will foster Trump's agenda, which is why people are floating the idea, by the way, of having J.D. Vance essentially be the de facto leader of the Senate, installing the president of the Senate as a concept and letting him take that leadership role and to try to set the agenda. It would be informal. I don't think it would be, formally there's still he wouldn't be able to vote. He can vote now. He's still a senator, but eventually wouldn't be able to vote. But him having that leadership role, I think, could create that real party cohesion. And I would love to see something like that happen. But I just got a feeling that the McConnell flank it is just going to they're just going to fight for that territory very hard. All right. Trump's victory has caused a leadership vacuum in the Democrat ranks. Wendell Huzabo writes this for us at Breitbart News. And this is to be expected. It's part of why I played all those clips for you, and I'll continue to play some of the meltdowns that are occurring online. It shows you how rudderless the Democrats are and the left, because many of them have not come to grips with just calling everyone fascist and playing identity politics and talking about abortion wasn't enough. And so what do they fall back on? They don't have a prominent wing of their party that talks about economic populism, that talks about, they campaign with Liz Cheney from the warmonger family of all warmonger families. So how do you go back and then recapture all of those pacifists that drove a lot of Democrat voters? They're completely lost, and there's no real power center that is not the establishment at this time. The AOCs and the squad, a lot of them got voted out, and a lot of them ended up compromising in order to be able to coexist in Washington with people on the Democrat left. So who is their conscience? Who is the people who are going to reset the agenda? All of their major voices are the types that appear on MSNBC these days, just the establishment of the establishment, the most bubbled people imaginable. So it follows that our reporting at Breitbart News is that we are seeing a big vacuum. The current generation of Democrat leaders are 1,000 years old. I mean, they really are. They're 70 plus, aren't they? I mean, we're talking the Clintons, the Obamas are 60 plus, the Bidens are 110 plus. I mean, can they run Jimmy Carter next time? Maybe they could. Maybe they should just run Jimmy Carter. It is a beautiful thing, because a lot of what the Democrats could do as a fallback, they wouldn't need to have meshes boards or 4chan or the X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, to get their organization. They could just go to the establishment media, but the signs are amassing that the corporate media influence is collapsing. John Nolte has a big piece for us up at Breitbart.com that all of you check out. But the road to the White House, it used to go through the 60 Minutes. It used to go through the CNNs. It used to go through those Sunday shows, the Meet the Presses. And it's becoming crystal clear that's no longer the case. And in fact, even some of the owners of these publications are starting to understand that the writing's on the wall, that this is no way to do business. Jeff Bezos is the one who comes first to mind, owner of the Washington Post, who stood in the way and blocked an endorsement of Donald Trump. Of Kamala Harris against Donald Trump, and just said, we're not going to do this. No one cares anyway. And if we do this, I'm just going to get alienated further from Trump. And he had, as far as I could tell, he had no relationship with Trump until the assassination attempt. I'm told, I have very high up sources that have told that they connected since then. I know Bezos did not endorse Trump. I'm sure Trump would have liked that if that was the case. But I think he did Trump a lot more good with what he did by blocking that Washington Post endorsement, because that was a massive embarrassment to the establishment media. And it is not just there. The Los Angeles Times is probably going to blow out their entire editorial board. Patrick Soon-Shiong Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who is the Los Angeles Times owner, not a natural right-winger. He's got a daughter who is very involved, who's a very activist left-winger. But he understands that the era of the establishment dead tree papers just getting to emote without fact-checking, et cetera, and have that set the agenda for the American media is gone. It's over. It's just not here anymore. Google executives who were picked to supercharge their news efforts have resigned. A guy named Shailesh Prakash, he's departed after 2 years after Google News was meant to be revamped and revitalized. I used to be a Google News reader on a constant basis, and I never go now. I never go. I used to go to at least check in to see what the Google algorithm was spitting out at people. But it really jumped the shark. They've never put up Breitbart content. Breitbart, one of the most popular outlets in the world. I looked at our traffic last week. It was just absolutely mind-blowing, rivaling our highest levels we ever saw at I would say the peak of our popularity in 2016, 2017. I only say peak is not now because since then, we've been discriminated against by Facebook and by Google and by other major aggregators and places like that. It's one of these things that I think is truly noteworthy in the space is that Google censors conservative news. So this is a big mistake if you're going to Donald Trump's America, and maybe this is what they're preparing for. Sundar Pichai, another guy that as of my last meeting with Donald Trump, which occurred 2 or 3 months before the election, maybe even closer to the election than that in proximity, I don't think he had a relationship with Sundar Pichai of Google at that time. Now he does, apparently, according to what Trump said on Joe Rogan's show. So they're getting it. They're starting to understand that in Donald Trump's America, particularly with the electoral college mandate that he has, particularly with winning the popular vote, particularly with winning the Senate and winning the House, that he's going to get a lot of his agenda into place. And a lot of these news outlets are better off not being directly in his crosshairs so he could focus on other stuff. So all big, happy developments. Chris Wallace to leave CNN. Come on, guys. I mean, can't get much better than this? Is it Chris Wallace is out? I mean, I wish he could give his money back, though. I bet he got a huge paycheck to goof off over at CNN for a couple of years. Is there a more smug, loathsome individual in the media? Not the worst guy in the media. It's just someone who you just love to hate, enjoyable to hate, and he's moving on. I wonder what he'll do next. I don't know. I mentioned earlier in the week the fantasies that Justice Sotomayor would quickly resign so that the Democrats could replace her with someone quickly, and she's not going to resign, according to reports. So she's going to stick it out and so see if she can make it. She's 70, but she's in not good health. The hope would be that maybe for Democrats, she would resign quickly, she'd get shuffled off, and then you would get maybe even a Supreme Court Justice Kamala Harris. How sweet would that be for the Democrats? No, but she's going to gut it out. She was picked in 2009 by Obama, and there's still people harboring on the left. It's so fun. The Mehdi Hassan, a popular left-wing guy, for a big liar, but a popular left-wing guy. Sonia Sotomayor needs to retire. I'm reading a lot of tweets from from November the 6th, right after the election. Time for her to resign. And of course, I played that clip on CNN where Bakari Sellers was fantasizing about her resigning. I played that earlier in the week. Bernie Sanders asking Sonia Sotomayor to resign quickly. Please get out. Let us make the pick. It shows you they know something too. I'm not up on her health completely, but clearly not in great shape. So this is where we're at with the left. They don't know what to do. They can only pray that a liberal court justice could resign and maybe they could be replaced quickly. It is, let me show you what they're up to, how they're piecing the pieces back together. Yale University is going to offer a Beyonce Makes History course in 2025. So that's what they're doing. We're just kicking butt and taking names, and then they got a new Beyonce course over at Yale. Did the Ivy Leagues know that they degrade themselves, they debase themselves? I love it because, as people have been pointing out, there's no surer sign of people moving to the left than when they go to college. That's where it's at. That is the fountain of leftism in our society, is the universities. They groom people to become leftists. They undo the good values that families and nuclear families give children growing up. And not to mention, they infect our cities. A lot of our cities. Do you want to know why I was surprised that Wisconsin went for Trump? I thought Trump would win. I thought he'd win by a lot. But I thought he was going to win Pennsylvania for sure. I thought Michigan he was going to win. But I didn't think he would win Wisconsin. And the reason is because their university centers are so powerful. They are magnets for left-wing thought, the most useless thought imaginable that what occurs in liberal arts colleges. And they're so overpaid. They're so overfunded. They're just slush funds. And they get infiltrated by foreign governments. More on that in later shows. But this culture, the standard is to get liberal arts degrees. There's a reason why we've created that culture, and that is to create new generations of Democrats, to undo the good that the nuclear family does, which makes people conservative because the American dream is alive and well. You can really see it. And having a happy, healthy family with American values, conservative values, in large part Judeo-Christian values, this is the way forward for a happy life. Universities don't do all that. So I love when I see these headlines because I get to remind you of that they're clown places. Even Yale is becoming a clown place. So clown college, Yale University. Scary one I got to bring up. A FEMA official instructed hurricane relief workers to skip Trump supporters' homes. This is a scary one that got confirmed because the official resigned. So that just shows you that this was bad, because they wouldn't have resigned if it was real. And then we saw a video that was on the Roland Martin show. Roland Martin was a cable news commentator. I think he was on CNN, left-wing guy. And he was talking to a FEMA official. I got a clip of this. Here it is.
Stating that I was fired. They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports.
Unbelievable. That is a colossal event of avoidance. They're avoiding helping people with Trump signs out. And I'll tell you, a lot of them probably do this because they're government officials who have hate in their heart. I don't doubt that. But a lot of them were probably steeped on a climate of fear. If you're in a government agency, you've been told Donald Trump's a bad guy, he's a fascist, Hitler's coming in, he's a Nazi, his supporters are garbage. And I do think that that's part of the reason that if you get a limited amount of time, you're not going to go help garbage. Why would you go help garbage, Joe Biden? That's the culture that's been created by the left. This is the downstream effects of it. I want to play you a mind-blowing clip. This is from Alex Michelson's show. He's a guy out in California who's mostly politically neutral and is a really good reporter, probably deserves a bigger national profile, but he's got a big profile in California. He's talking to Katie Porter, who's a star Democrat congresswoman who resigned to run for the Senate and a star of the left, and she lost to pencil neck in the Senate race. So here is her describing what Election Day was like for her.
So on election night, I went to pick up my daughter from water polo practice, and she's 12, and she got in the car and she was crying. And I said, did someone punch you? Like, water polo is a rough sport. I was like, did someone hit you? Did the coach yell at you? What happened? And she said, Mom, Trump won. Trump's going to win. And what if I get raped and I need to have an abortion? This is from a 12-year-old, my 12-year-old daughter. And so it was really a reminder of how scary this time is for people and how important it is for Democrats to have strategies, both at the state level and the federal level.
Who scared them, Katie? Who scared them? You tell me who scared them. Did we scare them? Are all people, there's all these rapes with MAGA hats on? Guys going around to 12-year-olds in MAGA hats? Where are the reports? Show me one. Show me one report. There's none. This is all the fear-mongering from people like you. The Democrat establishment, people go on cable news, and the people who talk about what bad people Trump supporters are. It's not real. And you scared your daughter half to death. And she blames us. She thinks it's our fault. It's not her fault. It's our fault. She's admitting to the world that she's a bad mother live on air. And it's funny because she plays this mom card, she's a teacher card. Her big shtick was when she was in the Congress is she would bring this whiteboard out and she'd write on the whiteboard while she was lecturing whoever she was supposed to be questioning. Very effective, very effective. And I understand why she was gaining popularity with Democrats. But she's no different than the rest of them. They're teaching you to fear Trump supporters. They're teaching you to be in fear. And this is something that some of the people in my life who know me and know personally I'm kind of a nice guy, and they're on the left and they want to ask me, what's going on? Do we have to be in fear? Are our kids going to be okay? They're going to be okay from us. They're not going to be okay from the trans groomers that are on CNN. The teachers and occasionally the doctors who are normalizing gender reassignment surgery for younger people, they're not going to be safe from them. They're not going to be safe from people who teach our children in the classroom to hate our country. But are they safe from Trump supporters? People who like the silly dances and want a secure border and lower taxes? Yeah, they can be completely safe, completely safe. Don't worry about it. Have a good time and enjoy the benefits of Trump's economic boom that's coming up next. To teach 12-year-olds this stuff and act like it's our fault. Where is the example? I just want one. I just want one of one 12-year-old getting sexually abused by a MAGA hat person. They're not out there. You know why we know? Because we would never stop hearing about it. These people are nuts. This is a sickness. All right. I've got a clip I can't resist playing because this is the meltdowns is just, we might never get anything like this again. This might be the peak of it because I feel like someone's got to get to these people and get them to rein it in. But this is the latest TikTok. Is this a trend? I don't know what's happening, but apparently there's some head shaving going on amongst angry Democrats. Yesterday, I played some clips of people who don't want a man to ever look at them again. They don't want to ever have a relationship or a date or even a desirous glance from a man in their whole lives because they're so upset about Trump. Let's hear where the left has gone today.
Just woke up this morning feeling spicy. You guys feel spicy? Because I do. All right. I don't know how to use this thing. Let's see what happens. Is this cutting off hair? I'm going to have to cut.
For those of you just listening to the show, you're missing out big league. But this is someone that says opting out 4B. That's the movement that we talked about yesterday, where you're going to avoid men because of Trump. You're going to spite yourself and anyone in your life who might be a nice guy because you really don't like Trump. And this woman that buzzer is a electric razor. She is shaving her head right now.
Get it shorter than that. Buzz it down, right? I think that this is it's getting hair. Let's see here. Maybe I got to cut it. Here we go. Have I given up on America?
Okay, first of all, she's copping out. That looks like a number 3 clipper, maybe a number 4 clipper. If you're going to go for it, go for it. Let's go all the way. Let's get down there to the root.
I've also given up on coloring this hair because, right? Coloring my hair. Having my hair be long and luxurious. All that shit. Being skinny. Being hot. All the things that the patriarchy wants us to be. Because clearly, they don't give a shit about us. And I'm talking to you, too.
She doesn't want to be skinny. She doesn't want to be hot because that would just indulge the patriarchy. It is a failure to come to grips with reality. This is a delusion. It was never about that. It was about people who make us all feel stupid. And it was about all those slated policies. Stop condescending to us. Stop belittling us. Stop name calling. Stop with the DEI woke stuff. Stop with the identity politics. And start realizing that legitimate people could want a secure border, could think we're in too many foreign wars, can think the tax rate's too high, to think that the government is wasteful, to think that our trade deals are bad, to actually want manufacturing jobs, and to, God forbid, actually say that men do good stuff. Because men do good stuff. A lot of dirty jobs out there that the type of woman who melts down like this would not be very good at. So it's just a reality. Part of life. This video is really long and I'm tempted to play more of it, but we're going to fast forward. I just want to see for the people in the viewing audience, which is apparently quite a lot of you. I want you to get to see the result. Let's see how her hair.
Men, fucking stop dating men. Stop having sex with men. Stop talking to men. Divorce your husband.
She gave up. She's a quitter. See, Democrats are quitters. She's cutting her head. She's cutting her hair now with scissors. She's got the scissor out. This looks like one of those scissors that you would use in like an elementary school classroom. It's got the little plastic. Made in China, clearly. It's got the plastic rings around the thumb holes. This is just public meltdown.
Leave your fucking boyfriends. Leave them. They don't give a shit about you. And I promise you, come over to this side. I will bake cookies. I will shave your head if you want me to, depending on how this turns out. Do a little more trimming before we buzz it. Where's my chop it? Cut my hair before. It's like, oh, don't.
All right, it's like this was planted for me in talk radio in the Breitbart newsroom. It's a who is more appealing? Who is more appealing to you? All those cool podcasters Trump was going on with, or the TikTok meltdown ladies? There's a gift. Well, I'll keep playing them. I'm just going to have to, because I want you in the audience to be able to share this. I'm trying to give you some of the arguments to share with friends and family. I think these are really powerful ones. All right. I want to check in on Rachel Maddow because I got a comment on her, but let's see. We got a clip of her. I want to play this. And then I got to share something about the leader of the Democrat intellectuals.
Now, Nancy Pelosi has blamed the loss at the election on President Joe Biden. Have a look.
Had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. Kamala, I think, still would have won, but she may have been stronger having taken her case to the public sooner. The anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary.
Okay, so it doesn't look like the right clip, but we can play. But this is still good to give a little comment on that because Pelosi, of course, passing the buck. She is the number one person most responsible. She's the number one person who is most responsible for the coup, even more so than Obama, based off of all the reporting that I've been able to gather. And of course, you got to throw Laureen Powell Jobs in there. Those are my big three of the people who are most responsible if you're a Democrat. But for her to act like it was Joe Biden's fault, as if Kamala Harris wasn't a terrible candidate anyway, and they rigged the primary for Joe Biden. Let's not forget that they didn't let a primary take place. And who's in charge of the party? Nancy Pelosi is the most powerful person in the party, arguably, going into that point, aside from Joe Biden. So it is one of those things where it's just unbelievable, the level of delusion that's going on. And I'll try to save it. We'll try to do a Maddow meltdown for you guys down the road, but I don't have one. But my comment on Maddow is going to be, it'll be less dramatic without a clip to tee it up. But my comment on her was, remember that she scaled back to once a week? And remember that Jon Stewart scaled back to once a week? These are not old people. These are people who are not Joe Biden's age. They're not Nancy Pelosi's age. They're not George Soros's age. These are people who are theoretically in their prime. And they scaled back from doing 5 days a week of work to doing 1 day a week of work. And then they lost. And people who are pointing the finger, I think those are some people you should point the finger to. The people who are your intellectual class who decided they wanted to go into semi-retirement, while the evil orange man, Donald Trump, reemerged, rose like a phoenix from the ashes for the greatest political comeback in American history. And just look at what their side did. Their side folded up shop. They wouldn't run a primary. They installed someone in the general election, and their top commentators got really lazy. And I think that's really fun. It's fun for me to think about that because I hope they all regret it. I hope they all hear what I just said and they hold themselves accountable. All right, we'll come back to this down the road. There is so much to do. It's such a great time. It's such an exciting time. I've got oh man, we got the COP29 going on. That's a UN climate summit. I want to talk a lot about that. I'll do that tomorrow. On tomorrow's show, we'll talk about that because I want to get to some of your emails and comments. I'm just getting a ton of great stuff. I'm trying to read everywhere. So you can leave a comment on YouTube, leave a comment on Rumble. Most importantly, aloha@alexmarlow.com. Okay, we're gonna get a new. Okay, we're getting a new Maddow. Okay, let's try it.
Did learn for sure this evening that Trump is choosing for his national security advisor another Republican member of Congress, Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida. After Congressman Waltz helped in the effort to try to overthrow the U.S. government and keep Trump in power after he lost re-election in 2020, you might remember, this was an amazing Florida story, you might remember a very unusual apology being published by Congressman Waltz's hometown paper, the Orlando Sentinel. It was an apology to their readers for having endorsed Mike Waltz for re-election. They apologized for having endorsed him after he tried to help Trump overthrow the government. Mike Waltz has also distinguished himself by claiming that Trump was not responsible for January 6th. He also has proposed that Dulles Airport should be renamed Trump Airport.
Okay, we already love him. We already love him, Rachel. Okay, she's just listing all the reasons why we want this guy in. This echoes my point so well. She should have showed up to work 4 or 5 days a week, at least that, 6 days a week, 8 days a week, whatever it is. If you really cared, you want to stop Mike Waltz, then you should have won, and you didn't. And you didn't stand in the way of Joe Biden when he rigged his primary. You didn't stand in the way of all the terrible strategy you guys took, calling all of us fascists and Nazis and all the stupid stuff you guys did. Should have had a actual plan instead of just whining, cringe-inducing. Love it. Absolutely wonderful. From Matt Out. Thank you. That was a great clip. Yeah, of course, Dulles should be renamed to Trump Airport. Why not? Do it. Have Reagan and Trump Airport, our nation's capital. Yes. Oh, I live for it. Absolutely live for it. And Trump wasn't responsible for January the 6th. I don't think he helped out a lot, but he said that we're going to march down there. It's going to be peaceful. Like it's all that's great. I'm not a January the 6th fan. This will come back around. It wasn't great. January 6th was bad. It was terrible. The January 6th was terrible. I'm not one of these guys who think it was nothing, but let's move on. It wasn't that bad, like considering. We watched the left disavow the 2016 election, act like it never happened for 4 years. People blew off steam for a day and it got out of hand and it was bad. Too many people went to jail. Can we move on? You guys got anything else? Hopefully not. Hopefully they do, because I don't think it's going to get any better. I think they're lost. All right. Your comments. This is one from YouTube. No need to go anywhere else for news and analysis, which I'd gone to high school in Los Angeles area and been privileged to interact with you, Alex, and Stephen Miller. I was thinking this morning as the team is being assembled, it would be great to have a picture of all the members standing on the steps of the White House. Oh, that's very kind of you. Yeah, LA and California, again, worthy of a longer show, maybe in a show where news starts slowing down a bit. Go through LA's connection to the modern conservative movement, because it is vast. Andrew Breitbart started his empire there. Stephen Miller from LA. I'm from LA. Ben Shapiro. Steve Bannon was a entertainment executive for a long time. Dennis Prager is still out here. PragerU is out here. It's pretty freaking remarkable if you really think about it. Larry Elder, the great Larry Elder. How could I forget? I didn't forget. I just forgot for a second. Yeah, amazing stuff. And those of you who missed yesterday's show, I go into a little bit of my history with Stephen Miller, which goes back to when we were teenagers. And he is the absolute sharpest guy in the room and whenever he's in the room, and Trump's lucky to have him. All right, here's one from Rumble. S.W. Norseman. I think there are weaknesses with all three of the candidates for GOP Senate Majority Leader. If Rick Scott is chosen, there will be resentment amongst those senators who didn't support him and would feel like he was forced upon them by the MAGA movement. If John Thune or John Cornyn is selected, there will be a very high level of resentment from the millions of voters who supported President Trump. That's right in the money. Who want nothing to do with either one of these senators. I think the best, most unifying, and most logical choice for Republican Senate Majority Leader is Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. Vance would unite everyone on the Republican side, is extremely sharp, and best able to advance the president's agenda. Terrific point. I love it. I don't know if it'd be called Majority Leader. I think it'd be called President of the Senate. I love this. Fully endorse. Absolutely. I'm all in, as I said on this show and on yesterday's show. Also on Rumble, JC Meredith, things to overreach on. This is apropos of yesterday's show. I talked about how I want to see Trump overreach. Driving down energy prices by announcing record-breaking federal oil and gas leases. Yes. Ending the war in Ukraine. Yes. Deporting as many criminal aliens as possible as soon as possible. Slapping a big tariff on Mexico. Freezing all federal funds to sanctuary cities and launching criminal investigations against federal government officials. Fully endorse. Let's hire J.C. Meredith and get him into the White House. And that is a completely clear-eyed endorse all of it. All right. Email her at aloha@alexmarlow.com. Jeff Lequois. I think I'm mispronouncing that. I'm so sorry, Jeff. You know, you're supposed to just pronounce it emphatically and act like you know what you're saying, because no one even knows how it's spelled. But that was bad speech and debate class rhetoric right there. All right. Jeff writes, Alex, I want to welcome you back. I've sincerely missed your daily broadcast and was extremely happy to hear you're back. I'm wondering if you can impart some knowledge to me on the subject of Stephen Miller. And he goes on to ask for a defense of whether or not, what to say to people who say he's a Nazi. I would say that I think Stephen Miller's Jewish, by the way. Isn't he? Is he Jewish? If he's not, then that would be this is an awkward moment of podcasting and radio. But it is, what is his religion? Is he Jewish? He is from a Jewish family. Okay, there you go. So, and he's got family that escaped Jewish pogroms. All right. There you go. That's for starters. Number two, he was close allies with Jared Kushner, who was not only not the most America First guy in the Trump White House, is a committed Jew, dedicated Jew, with Jewish children. So my first stop is, why choose Nazis? Why is that? This is the logical fallacy, reductio ad Hitlerum, where you just try to tie everything to Hitler as fast as you can, because that stifles any argument and debate, because no one would defend Hitler. That's what they do with this guy. There's nothing connecting him to that. And just because he's an immigration hawk and understands, because he grew up in LA, that illegal immigration ruins cities and states, and that was the first thing that he seized on politically, understanding the stakes for this country are huge, and that if we don't restore national sovereignty, we will not have a country. A country without a border is not a country. It is not a nation. If you have no border, you have no nation. That's it. It's fundamental. And Miller internalized that sooner than most, and that's it. There is absolutely nothing in his background that indicates any Nazi connection at all. And I'm getting sick of this low IQ argument and debate. And I'm not saying Jeff is. Jeff's forced, the rest of us are forced to do this too. Very noteworthy and a great spot to end on, because we can go into the rest of the day feeling superior that we're talking about important stuff and they're talking about whether or not the Jewish people in Trump's cabinet are secret Nazis. All right, that's today's show. All of you in the Breitbart Fight Club, I do a deep dive with Matt Boyle, our Washington editor, on all of the various Trump picks that we know so far. I recommend all that. And sharing this content with 10,000 friends and family members, sending them your favorite clips. We're trying to post some shorts up on the various video platforms, and subscribing. Best thing you can do, comments, emails, all of that. I welcome it all. We'll feature it all in the show. That's today's broadcast. Thanks to producer Misty, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.